Hello there, and welcome once again to Underlords Universe. This is a forum where my brother and I, and sometimes our friends and colleagues, we like to discuss things like music and literature and movies,
Yeah, movies.
and the things that we get into that kind of inspire us to do the creative work that we do in terms of music and writing and things like that. So we are joining you today for part 3 of a Queensryche uh, review, if you will,
Yeah,
of
series on Queensryche.
series, where we're doing a review of the Queensryche albums. In this episode, we're focusing on 4 records, namely the Operation Mindcrime II record, the American Soldier record, the Dedicated to Chaos record, and we're also including the Frequency Unknown record.
Yeah. So, yeah. If you are new to our channel, and obviously by now you've liked and subscribed, but you might be wondering why we're just ranking this chunk. Well, if you've noticed the title, this is part 3, as Brent said. We tend to spend maybe roughly an hour or so talking about a chunk of albums, and so we're breaking up this catalog the way we are, just to kind of make it fit within our time frame. But also we want to sometimes highlight and focus certain eras, and in doing the Queensryche albums, this is kind of an era. Now, you might say, for those of you who, of course, know that some people say that this Frequency Unknown is not even really a Queensryche album. It's Geoff Tate and a lot of guests. Simon Wright is on it. I think Ken Downing does a guitar solo on one track, and I'm not going to go through all of the nuances of that, but it's basically a Geoff Tate plus guest star album. And they were fighting in court over the ownership of the name Queensryche, and only a few months later, Queensryche would put out its self-titled album in competition with this one. And so a lot of people, even on Wikipedia, it's not even listed as part of the discography. It's listed under Geoff Tate's Queensryche.
Mm-hmm.
We're including it though for a couple reasons. Number one, it was marketed as Queensryche. That's one. Number two, at the time of its release, the legal dispute had not ended. And also, in terms of the production and the writers on it, there's a lot of similarity between that and these.
Yeah.
Namely Jason Slater and Kelly Gray. So, in that sense, is it really that different? I mean, in fact, let's see here. I don't remember which. I don't think Scott plays a single beat on this album.
I don't think he does either.
And Michael Wilton didn't write a note of that album. So to me, including this just makes it a little bit more of an interesting discussion. So, because to me it was like, I'll be honest, I didn't even buy it when it came out. It took me years to actually get it. And in fairness, that was the same with Dedicated to Chaos as well. And at one point, I actually got rid of Operation Mindcrime II and American Soldier. I'd since gone back and gotten them back, But, that might be a little bit of an indicator of what my overall feelings about this era are. However, one of the things we like to do with this system that we've come up with is it kind of forces us to just re-examine music sometimes, to listen with fresh ears, and to maybe rethink these things. And so the system we came up with is a little different than the way other people do things. So Brent, do you want to just kind of explain the system real quickly while I take a sip of my coffee here?
With each of these records, and with every record, like you said, Brian said, we'll go back and listen to it with fresh ears and give every song 0 to 5 points or stars, and then you just kind of add up the total number of stars or points that you have when you're done with the record, and then you divide it by the number of songs. So if you have a 10-track record, you have a potential of 50 points. If you've given out 40 points, that's 80%. So it's a pretty
Hmm.
strong. So you're kind of like really evaluating every song individually, and then collectively that kind of gives you an idea about what you think of the record. Now, obviously, you're leaving out things like we're not talking about the album cover necessarily, the production, things like that. But we do, as we listen, we're thinking about the production, how things sound and how things are mixed. So,
Yeah.
but that's a brief overview of the actual system.
Yeah. So with that, you want to go ahead and get into Operation Mindcrime 2?
I think we should.
Let's do it. Okay, I'd like to just start with, because it's a concept album and a sequel. The basic idea of the story is that Nicky, who's the main character in the first Mindcrime, he gets out of prison, wants revenge on Dr. X, who's the main antagonist. He still hates the government. He ends up in trouble again. And my note there just says it's not that compelling of a story. I just don't
No.
think it's that interesting as a story. And and for me with a concept album, because it's a music oriented thing, if the story itself isn't that interesting, um, then everything else has got to really carry the weight. I think the thing about Operation Mindcrime 1 is that, I mean, first of all, it's just the music and the melodies and everything. That's the main thing. But it works so well as a story. Even if some of the nuances of the story kind of get lost along the way here and there, the basic gist of Mindcrime 1, I think, works well on all levels. On this one, my note says this isn't even Conan the Destroyer. It's more like Beastmaster 2: The Eye of Braxis as a
Yeah,
sequel. So,
for people who maybe don't know, it's not nearly as good as the first Beastmaster. So,
uh, no, and I'm not saying that Operation Mindcrime 1 is on par with the first
no, no, no.
Beastmaster. I'm just okay. So, but yeah, this is the Beastmaster 2: Eye of Braxis sequel in as a parallel. So, that's kind of like my overall sentiment of the album as a whole. It also to me comes across as like a desperate attempt to regain sales, because clearly the albums, before it had seen a subsequent drop in sales, between Here and the Now Frontier, Q2K, um, getting DeGarmo back for some writing on Tribe. Those things didn't really work, and then it's like, okay, how about Mindcrime 2? Now I don't know, and that's maybe not fair to say that, because I don't know that that's the case. I like to make judgments based on evidence, but that's how it kind of feels to me as a Queensryche consumer. So, what are your thoughts overall on the album as a concept record?
I think we don't know this to be a fact, but I think your assumption that perhaps this was driven by the lack of interest in the band in the previous handful of years is probably not too far off, because at this point this is what, 2006 when this record came out, so it's
I think so. Yeah.
18 years after the first Mindcrime, which to this day some people say is their crowning achievement. So in my view, it always seemed a little bit forced. Like, one of the things that makes Mindcrime, the first Mindcrime, work as a record and as a story is that the music is so solid from top to bottom. So you can have a less than compelling story, or kind of a retread story idea, or a generic idea, and it works when you have really, really good music.
Hmm.
Here you don't really have either. It's like, okay, how can we actually we need to make Mindcrime 2. Let's figure out a way to do it. And then and to me, it's just not compelling either in the story front or the music front. In fact, I think it's got a lot of subpar music on it.
So
There aren't really a lot of standout moments, individual tracks, or even riffs on this record. Whereas with the first one, there's a lot of that going on. So I think it fails to a large degree in both.
Yeah, okay. So you make a reference to obviously the writing of it, then the music, and to that point, it's entirely written by Geoff Tate, Jason Slater, the producer, and Mike Stone. And no disrespect to Mike Stone. I mean, he's obviously an accomplished guitarist. He actually plays, a lot of different styles of guitar too. but and he did write. Was it "Losing Myself" on Tribe?
Which I quite like a
Yeah,
lot.
I like that song quite a bit. So, you know, I don't want to necessarily lay the my disappointment at the feet of those guys necessarily as individual composers, but this is like the one and only like large scale project that Mike Stone had a hand in writing, and it to me it comes across as a bit of a pastiche. Um, and I'm not against sequels. I'm not even against remakes necessarily. And I'm not against pastiches. For example, Robert E. Howard wrote the original Conan stories. They're great. Um, I like some of the stuff written by Robert Jordan. Decades later, they're fine. They're not Robert E. Howard. But they can still be good. It's like, in other words, I'm not down on Mindcrime II because it isn't Mindcrime.
Right.
I'm just I've never been able to latch on to Mindcrime II the same way, and a lot of it just comes across to me as very ho hum. With that, can we get an idea of what like some high points? I mean, we kind of sound like we're slagging it a bit, and I think there are some actual moments on this record that are pretty good.
I do.
Just not enough of them. But what are some of your high points?
Before I give you those, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
My question would be, do you think that your view of this record, or how it was absorbed by the public, how it was taken in, would be any different if it wasn't Mindcrime 2? If this would have just been Queensryche in 2006 doing a record, and some of these songs are on this record, but it's not Mindcrime 2. It's just another Queensryche record. Did they set themselves up
That's a
by
good question. Yeah.
Crime 2 when they can't meet that? That's a very high bar. Did they
Yeah.
do themselves a disservice by doing that?
I don't know. I mean, in some ways it's kind of like in historical study trying to prove a negative, of what didn't happen, because we don't have evidence of what didn't happen. But
Right.
it's hard to not think that way. I mean, because Mindcrime is arguably, some people say it's the greatest metal or hard rock / metal concept album ever, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. So you are setting the bar awfully high, which so I don't really know how to answer your question, from even because I don't really know exactly what my opinion would be, but I don't. When I listen to Mindcrime 2, I try not to compare it to Mindcrime. I try to just simply accept it for what it is. I'm very open to bands changing and doing things differently and sounding different and all that kind of stuff. Totally fine with that. I mean, God, Unmasked is like one of my favorite Kiss albums of all time. So, as is Creatures, right? So it's not a matter of, to me personally, it's not a matter of does it meet the bar, but it's hard to know how how the general Queensryche fan would have accepted. And that's a good opportunity for, if you're a Queensryche fan and you have opinions about this. That's a good question, I think, to post a comment in the comments below. Like, did they set the bar too high? Do you kind of take the album, even though it's a sequel, do you take it for what it is as a standalone album, etc.? I don't really know. Let's just throw the question out there to potential viewers.
So the full disclosure, nothing on this record for me got anything higher than a 3.5.
Same here. Same here.
So and I gave a 3.5 to four songs. So these would be my standout tracks on the record at 3.5 stars.
All right.
I'm American, One Foot in Hell, The Hands, and Rearrange You. Those were the 4 tracks that I gave 3.5 stars to. A lot of the tracks are just, and for me, a 3-star song it's an okay song, good song. I don't necessarily skip it. I don't dislike it. If I go below 3 stars, there are things that I actively don't like about it. And there are 4 songs that graded lower than 3 stars from me on this record. So But those are the four that I think would be my favorites if I had to pick
Okay.
favorites.
So you and I agree and disagree in that. I actually gave Rearrange You a 3.5 as well. And I gave The Hands a 3.5. I actually think that those are pretty good songs. I like those songs.
Mhm.
To me, your three is kind of like my 2.5. To me, I think of like, you know, 1 to 5, like here, and the 2.5 is right in the middle. So I always think of 2.5 as like, eh, yeah, I can take it or leave it. That's kind of how I think of a 2.5.
Mhm.
So when I start getting into three, it's kind of like, yeah, I like it. But with these, a lot of these I can't say I necessarily dislike, but I can't necessarily say I like. So they're just 2.5s.
Mhm.
I gave one. Did you say One Foot in Hell? You gave a 3.5 to? Yeah, that, and then I'm American. I give those 2.5s. I can just take it or leave them. But I do think the hands is good. It kind of brings back the chord pattern, chord progression of I Don't Believe in Love in the beginning.
Mhm.
Um, but I think now the thing about Rearrange You though, I think that it's got a great chorus. Actually, I think on the whole, it's a really good song. I don't like the way it starts. I probably would have given Rearrange You maybe even a 4 if it didn't have a real jazz hands vibe at the very beginning of it. It's like when that song starts, I'm like, oh no, oh god. It has to like get through the first like 20, 30 seconds before I'm,
Mhm.
you know, and then it kind of really kicks up. But yeah, it's like it really has this kind of jazz hands feel vibe at the very beginning of it. To me, maybe I'm weird like that, but to me, those are the two highlights, and those are the highest scores I gave is 3.5, and then the rest of it is real 2.5 to me. Um, I gave the Chase and Murderer 3s, even though you know what, honestly, I probably could have given Murderer a 2,
I gave it,
or
I gave it a two.
because like that, what did you do, Murderer? What did you do, Murderer? It's
Yeah,
like, yeah, I think I graded that too high. I think musically it's actually really good, and I think the solo section in Murder is good, but as a song, I think I
I,
overrated it.
I
Yeah,
gave that the lowest. I gave that the lowest score of any song on the record with a two.
is it
I,
because of the same reasons? Yeah,
yeah.
I think I
Other
was kind of looking for something in it, you know, but
other scores for me were Circles 2.5,
I get that.
Intentional Con 2.5,
Yeah,
All the Promises 2.5, and I got to be honest, even the song with Ronnie James Dio, it's
yeah.
not that good. It's
I
just not.
think no, he can sing anything, and his singing is fantastic. But the music, I think, in The Chase is actually pretty weak. I don't think it's that.
It's like you got a chance to have Ronnie James Dio sing on your record, and that's what you give him.
Yeah, I know.
I I think that song is very pedestrian, and to me, it's a lot. Ronnie sings the song fine, but he doesn't even do anything. You know, he can do so much with his voice, and he didn't
Mm-hmm.
even, in my view, didn't give him a chance to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's just me.
Yeah, that's a good point. They didn't. I don't think they utilized what he was, his potential. So
I think the record sounds good. The production's fine. I mean, everything sounds really good. But for me, this record is sorely lacking in the riff department and in the song. These guys know how to write. Now, you've talked about how the writers on this record are not necessarily, the guys that have written in previous records, but Geoff Tate knows how to write melodies and write songs. And you talked about Mike Stone. These guys know how to write songs. I think this record is lacking in the riff department and the song department. That's just me.
yeah, I think maybe in another episode at another time I mentioned this. I think songs. It's like if a song can really be based around a riff. If a song's got a really great riff, that's one thing. It can have a really good groove. It can have a really strong melody. If it's got all three of those things, awesome.
Great.
You know, what one of the reasons why a lot of singer-songwriter stuff works with just, a lot of just basic chords and things is if you have a really powerful melody over it. You know, some songs don't have great melodies necessarily, but their groove or the riffs are so good that those are the hooks. And I just don't feel that that's the case with most of the stuff. I will say if I had to pick one song, it would be Rearrange You.
Okay.
So, um, and honestly, if I was putting up to like a compilation to kind of
Mhm.
span Queensryche's entire history,
Mhm.
I'd put Rearrange You on that. That would be, you know,
That's
okay.
fair. I mean,
Yeah,
the album's not without its good moments. There just aren't as many as we're accustomed to from
yeah,
this band.
yeah. Okay. So, having said that, let's move along to American Soldier,
Hmm.
which I think I forgot to, I think I forgot to put Mindcrime II up there, but it's okay.
I think at this point it's 2009. I think that's when this record came out.
Yeah, and when this album came out, for my full disclosure, I was very disappointed when this album came out. It
So was I.
just it just seemed like a slog. It was just boring to me.
Hmm.
Um, and I will say I actually don't think that there's anything on the record that's as good as Rearrange You from Mindcrime 2.
Okay. I
Now,
disagree, but
but
we'll talk
but
about
our calculations are about an album as a whole.
it.
You know, a couple high points don't necessarily mean that the album on the whole is better. So yeah, I found this to be difficult to get into when it first came out. I still find it difficult to get into. Um, I think that it starts off on a real bad note. I think Silver.
Sliver.
Yes, I'm sorry. I just wrote it down wrong here. Silver. Sliver is I think Sliver's a very it's just got some Velveeta in it. I mean that welcome to the show.
Yeah,
Welcome to the show. That's just to me that's just lame. And and other people, if you like it, if you think that if that vibes with you, no disrespect. People it's just music, man. People have different opinions. To me, it was just like a slab of Velveeta, just melting and oozing down. I was just like,
I don't
no.
care for that either. But that's not my jam. But yeah,
And
usually, if you can get a record off to a really hot start, you do it. And they
mhm.
didn't. They didn't really do it in this case because they didn't really set the table very well. An album starter is really very important, and I agree with you. This kind of falls a little bit flat. I
Yeah.
don't dislike it, but again, as with Mindcrime 2, there's just a lot of average music and songs on this record.
So now, in terms of the songwriting, a lot of this is written with Kelly Gray,
Mhm.
and so one is kind of compelled maybe to see how this stacks up against Q2K, which in our very last episode we'll aggregate all of the albums. We'll see kind of where that stacks up. But this is very much a Kelly Gray, Geoff Tate kind of thing. Jason Slater's also still involved. He produces it, and he's got some writing on it as well, I believe. But um, to me, the first four songs, here's my scores on the first four songs: two, two, two and a half, two and a half, and it's
So
just like
for me, it's
boring.
three and a half, which again, we're pretty much because if you're two and a half is my three, we're pretty much in the same ballpark.
Yeah,
We're not.
I think Unafraid has a decent melody in over the chorus. Um, but everything else in it is it's just that voiceover of the soldier being interviewed, and it's like that to me does. I mean, like that doesn't work well as a second song, especially when you're following Sliver with that kind of cheesy, welcome to the show. It's like this is just not working right out of the gate for me. But I try to evaluate songs in the context of an album, but also be open to the idea that some great songs might be down the road. I actually heard somebody else not too long ago say about an album. I don't remember which album they were talking about. They were saying something like, "Yeah, I couldn't. By the time I got three-fourths of the way into it, I just kind of gave up on it." It's like, well, there might be some stuff in the end that's just fantastic. So I think you have to kind of, take the whole thing in. And I think that this actually is an album that gets better as it goes on Though I think it ends kind of weak as well. I think the Home Again and The Voice are all two in the two and a half range as well. I think the best song on the album is Middle of Hell, and I give that a 3.5.
Okay.
What's your high point?
My high point is If I Were King. I gave that a 4, and
Oh,
I almost gave it a higher grade. I really like that song. I like that song quite a bit.
If I Were King, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, I would put that on a compilation. If I were making a compilation of Queensryche songs, I would include that. Um, my least favorite song is probably The Killer. I gave it a 3, but I don't like the chorus. That's got a really cheesy and chummy chorus, and I don't like that kind of stuff. Especially,
It's chummy, you say.
yeah, I think to me it's comes across a little bit chummy in his vocal delivery, and I just for a
Interesting.
song called The Killer, I don't really think that's just me. That's how I
It,
hear it, and so I still give it a 3, but if I had to pick a track that's my least favorite, it would probably be The Killer.
it's this interesting because I don't necessarily think of the chorus in The Killer as chummy. But what I'm going to do probably later today now is listen to The Killer, Middle of Hell, and If I Were King, especially those three songs, and just kind of listen to them again now that I have, your opinion on them, because I don't necessarily think I would use that word. But then again, somebody else might think I'm crazy for saying Rearrange You has jazz hands sounds.
Yeah,
So,
it's kind of
um,
all. Yeah,
yeah.
it's all how you hear things. But
I think I
um,
think Middle of Hell is kind of atmospheric and kind of cool. I really I like it.
I gave that 3.5 stars.
That's what I gave it, and that's the highest ranking I gave on the. So did you say If I Were King is the highest you gave it, a 4? Is it anything else ranked that high?
No,
Okay, okay,
to me that's clearly the standout track on the record,
okay.
and that comes in the second half of the record. So to your point, if you give up on this record and you're halfway in my view, you're missing the best song on the record because it comes after the half.
And I would agree with that. We don't necessarily agree on which is the best song, but I agree with that generally. To me, the album goes like this, like that.
Yeah, for me,
Uh,
it's like a perfect, you know.
yeah, yeah.
What do
Uh,
you think about the topic? I mean, this is the first time that the guys kind of took on like a really political or a different,
yeah.
they write songs in a different, kind of in a different vein. What do you think about that?
So, okay, so for one, I just want to start with the fact that again, this is by and large. I mean, there are some more credits. I think there's a couple Scott Rockenfield and A. Jackson credits in there, but as far as I remember, Michael Wilton didn't write a note on this,
I don't think he did.
and so that's a little bit of a bother. As far as the the subject matter and the idea, on the one hand, I think it's pretty cool.
Hmm.
It's a different idea. It is a concept album in that regard. It's the focus is on the experience of American soldiers. Um, like a lot of people, I've got a lot of um, reverence for people who've put themselves out there and put their lives on the line, whether one agrees with a particular um, military objective or not. The individuals involved are doing something that's something I've never had to do, and um, I respect that, and I think it's a cool idea. Where there's a little bit of the same reaction though that I have with respect to Mindcrime II, because they're not selling, they're not getting attention, and I just I just want to believe that this is not a cynical attempt to try to gain listeners at the time. I don't want to accuse them of that, and I don't necessarily think that's the case, but I could see where somebody could see that. They'd be like, oh, they're just doing this
Hmm.
and so it's a fine line, I think, on trying to do something like that. For what it is, it's a bit of an oddity to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Um, yeah, I don't know. What do you think about the
I give
concept?
him credit for doing something that's really different. Um, it's I wouldn't say it's a failed experiment. I mean, it's definitely a one-off. There's no record before that and no record after it that's like
Yeah.
that. So it's unique in that regard. As you mentioned earlier, I had this earlier in and I got rid of it, and I ended up getting it. I bought it again at a later time, but at one point it was a record I disliked so much that I got rid of it.
So, okay. When, just in full disclosure, when did you rebuy some of these albums?
Within the last year.
Okay, same here because I knew that I wanted to dig deep and explore this catalog. You know, we went and saw the current Queensryche a few months back. There's the potential to go see Geoff Tate in May, and I was kind of like, you know what? I used to have some of these albums. I want to give them a fair shot. And of course, you could pull them up online, on YouTube, on Spotify, whatever. Um, but I find that I tend to I can mentally dig deeper into an album when I have the physical thing in my hand.
Hmm.
So, um, uh, before we move along to Dedicated to Chaos, because the reason I asked that question actually was because I never bought Dedicated to Chaos when it first came out. I just didn't buy it. It was like I was kind of done. And I only got it not too long ago, really. Um, but at this point, by the time that you're doing Mindcrime II and American Soldier, are you getting the feeling, or at the time these albums came out, were you getting the feeling that this was less and less of a band and more of a Geoff Tate project? Like,
Oh
did
yeah.
you? Okay,
Oh,
because that's
yeah.
that's how I felt about it. That's what it really seemed like to me.
Especially because I believe at this point we'd already had, yeah, we'd had Jeff's first solo album, which I had.
Yeah, and
I
that
think
came
that
out a long time ago. Yeah,
came out in '02,
I don't even
maybe.
remember. I don't even
But
remember.
anyway, my point is, I think these records sounded a lot more like what he was doing with his solo material, and much less like Queensryche. And I think as we get into Dedicated to Chaos, I think we can say that about that
Yeah.
record as well.
Well,
It didn't really sound as much like Queensryche, and
okay.
with good reason. A lot of the guys that helped create that sound weren't writing and playing on these records.
Okay, and therein lies the point. Because to me, it's not as much about what does it sound like and is it good. Because I understand bands are going to change. It is a matter of who's making. And it's like,
Right.
okay, if then maybe Jason Slater and Kelly Gray ought to just be in the band. And it's like because if the other guys aren't contributing, if they're not playing, I mean, like we said, Scott Rockenfield didn't even play on Mindcrime 2. Now you could also say, well, you mentioned Kiss's Unmasked. Peter Criss didn't play on that. That's Anton Fig, right? On the song Shandy, Paul is the only guy in Kiss who plays on the entire song.
Right.
And there's room for debate and discussion in there for sure. Is it really Queensryche? Well, you know what? It's part of the catalog. It's a Queensryche album. They toured for it. It's so digging deep. I had to go back and get it again, and I had to get. I think it's a good segue to Dedicated to Chaos.
Yeah, and this is and this is like the band. I mean, it's like Michael Wilton and yeah, there they all are. There's Scott, but
And we should also note that at this point, Parker, because well, I should say this. We should say this. This was recorded as a four-piece because Mike Stone had I don't know, I'm not sure what the reasons, but Mike Stone was no longer in the band, and Parker Lundgren
mm,
replaces him.
mm,
And I believe if you read some of the background on this album, Parker even says that when the album came out, there were songs on the album he didn't even know existed. When the album came out, he was like, "What's this?"
he wrote, and I believe he has writing credits on the record too.
I think he does, yeah. But
So that's
when
really interesting.
when this first came out, I remember listening to. I checked out some of it online, and I think it was. Yeah, I was curious about What We Do. It was like a sequel to What Kind of Man from Q2K. And my note says, What kind of man? What the heck is this? And I remember listening to that. I found a clip of it online, and I remember thinking, I can't buy this. This just isn't Queensryche, and I'm not normally one to say that about a band. And so I did not buy this for the longest time.
Mhm,
Eventually, obviously, I did.
mhm. Well,
Um,
I think it's a good observation because it piggybacks on what we were saying about the last record. It's like, is it becoming more, even though they're presenting themselves as the band, like on the back for the photo,
yeah.
is it really more of a Geoff Tate project? And
Well,
I do think that that's worth exploring because there were clearly fractures in the band at this point. And the ultimate fracture was about to happen when this was going down. And I think you hear that in this record. Now, having said that, I don't think this is necessarily a bad record. I don't like like you said, I don't necessarily hear it as much as a Queensryche record. Um,
but it is.
but it is. But that doesn't mean, like you said, with Shandy and with other songs that bands like Kiss have done, where there aren't all the band members don't play on them. We could go through a whole episode of Kiss and where that's present. If the
In other
songs
bands, yeah.
if the songs are good, nobody cares. If the songs
Yeah.
are bad,
Yeah.
people will talk about it. So I'm going to agree with you. Actually, the only song on this record I gave a below 3 grade to is What We Do. I gave that a 2. Everything else is in the 3 range except one track, which I gave a 4. But
Hmm. Okay. It's
so
funny. I gave What We Do a 1.5.
okay, I gave it a 2. So to me, this is consistent with the previous 2 records. There's a lot of 3 on. To me, one of the worst listening experiences, and this might sound kind of dumb to some people, are really boring listening experiences where everything is a 3. I would rather that there be like I can laugh at something maybe if it's a 2. I might get a chuckle laugh. I want something that's maybe a 4. I'd like a couple 5s in there. But if it's just 3, 3.5, 3, that's kind of a boring listen for me. And what I'm trying to say is that these records aren't necessarily bad,
Hmm.
but to me they're very boring at times.
Can I do not disagree with you on that. But here's what I am going to say. Even though on the whole, Dedicated to Chaos is much like its predecessors,
Mm-hmm.
I actually think it's more interesting.
It is more interesting. I agree with you.
Hmm.
I agree with
And Scott actually is quoted around the time as saying, you know, they're doing stuff, you know, different rhythmically, and there's some songs in there that have some interesting bass and rhythm stuff going on, and you know, it's almost like, I mean, I don't want to read too much into it, but I kind of get the impression that maybe some of those guys were trying to make lemonade out of lemons. Um, you know, not to say that this entire album is a lemon. To your point, it's actually not. And I actually think from a matter of listening to an album that's interesting, I think this is more. It's more interesting. There's a little more zigs and zags on it, I think,
you.
than on say American Soldier.
Yes.
But there's nothing on American Soldier I gave a 1.5 to, and there is on this, which is what kind. Excuse me, What We Do. Um, the highest score I gave was a 3.5 again, and I gave that to the song Higher.
Me too. I give that a 3.5, but I did give one 4.
Which one did you give a 4 to?
I quite like Get Started. I gave that a 4.
Oh, I don't mind it, but to me it's just kind of there. It,
And then also I gave a 3.5 to The Lie. So those are my 3 highest ranking tracks on the
okay.
record.
Um, I didn't make too many notes on this album. For Big Noise, I just wrote Big Mess, which is the closing track on the record.
Yeah,
Uh,
again, they spell it Noize. I really don't like all those goofy spellings and songs.
yeah, I'm not a fan of that kind of thing or of
I don't,
exclamation marks and stuff like that
I
on.
don't rate it based on that, but it's just when I see that, I'm kind of like my initial reaction is the
Mm,
what we do. It's kind of like really okay. So
I know.
initially, I'm predisposed to kind of like look down on it just because of the way they write the title.
Yeah, and then you try to mentally just say, okay, but don't let that count against it. You know,
Yeah,
take the song for what it is. It's not the song itself is not the title is not the song.
right.
So you can't use that against it, but it does kind of predispose you to it. It's kind of like that idea of like how an album cover might
Hmm. Yeah,
impact, you know.
yeah.
So yeah, okay. What so okay, so you said Get Started. I don't mind Get Started. It's fine. I gave it a three.
I like
Um,
it.
yeah, and to me, and then I do think Higher was the best song on the right. I think Higher's got a good kind of bass groove to it. Yeah, the thing I like about Retail Therapy is I kind of like the idea behind the song, and I kind of like the lyrics in Retail Therapy. Um, I gave that a three. I gave The Lie a three, but yeah, in some of the other tracks like Drive, I Take You, and of course Big Noise, I give those a two and a half. They're just kind of there for me. So a lot of these three albums is a matter of like how many threes, how many two and a halves, and it's they're all pretty similar records. Which
I think that
if you're AC/DC and you're selling a lot, having similar albums maybe is the thing to do. But I think one of the things about Queensryche is, you go back to the early days, The Warning, Rage for Order, Operation Mindcrime, Empire. Those albums they're very different records.
yeah.
And to me, yes, these are very different records conceptually, but I don't necessarily know in terms of musically you get that sonic musical difference. I think the biggest difference is with Dedicated to Chaos, but there is more of a sameness, I think, here.
Well, I would agree with that. I also think Dedicated to Chaos, the track, it's a little bit disjointed. Perhaps to your point, what you said, Scott said about the record, they're trying different things, which is a good thing.
Hmm.
But sometimes the record, to me, this record seems a little bit disjointed and doesn't flow quite as well as some of their
So,
previous records.
so in other words, it lives up to its title.
Yeah, interestingly enough, yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, then I think it's on the Dedicated to Chaos tour. I think they did like the Queensryche Cabaret thing, which I was just like, they jumped the shark when they did Queensryche Cabaret. I was done. I'm like, that's the dumbest thing.
I totally
And
forgot.
yeah, and then I don't remember what exactly they were doing. Where they were on the road, and I don't remember which if they were still doing the cabaret thing or whatnot. I don't think they were, but they were doing some sort of festival, and they had some kind of blowout between the band members and Geoff, and then it all kind of really fell apart. You get into litigation. They fire Geoff, and Geoff comes out with this quote unquote Queensryche album, and it's called Frequency Unknown, which I think at the time he claimed he didn't think of FU as any. It was like, oh, I didn't realize that was, and it's like,
No,
you had to realize it. And the thing I think is bizarre about it is like you're billing this album as a band, and yet
yeah.
you put a picture of all of your guest stars on it. It's like, is
Well, and that's not even all the guest stars. I mean,
and it's no, it's not all of them.
you need a bigger panel for all of them.
And it's
So
like,
yeah,
so is it a band or not, Geoff? Now, like we said at the beginning, we're including it here because it's billed as a Queensryche album, and in fact, it's got the Kelly Gray, Jason Slater kind of thing going on. I mean, Jason Slater produced he's pictured in there, and so was Kelly Gray. I think he was, wasn't he?
Sarzo.
Yeah, but those two, yeah, there's Jason Slater, there's Kelly Gray. By the way, Jason Slater passed away, I believe, from a heart attack some years ago. So rest in peace to him. Sad, too young. But the it's just like it's very confusing because it's like, okay, is this a solo album or is this a Queensryche record? Okay, but we're here to take the album for what it is. Um, this is another one I purposely did not buy this at the time. I was like, I'm not buying it. I won't do it. And then Billy Sherwood, of course, from Yes, well, in and out of Yes, but of course now being in Yes for quite some time again. But Billy Sherwood actually remixed it. This is not the remix. I do not have a physical copy of the special edition, which has both. It's got a purple cover. I have listened to some of the remixes, and in some ways they're better. The only thing about the remix that kind of didn't work as well for me is I didn't like the snare sound, and that really cut through for me. And so I haven't listened to the remix in its entirety, to be honest with you. But there were some nuances and stuff that were coming through on the remix that at some point I'm going to give a deeper listen to. But how do you think this just overall stacks up against the three previous albums, which, as we've already said, have a strong Jason Slater, Kelly Gray influence?
It's very comparable, and my scoring bears that out.
Well, that'll be interesting to see where it lands. That's the thing. Where does this faux Queensryche album stand in the mix?
I didn't go into it with any pretenses, but it's very comparable in terms of the song quality, the production values.
Yeah,
I'll never be able to say this with 100% degree of certainty, but in my view, most likely what Geoff was doing was making sure that he got this out before he couldn't. So in some respect, you could say this is him trying to make sure that he was going to be able to get some money on record sales and the name of the band before there was any judicial determination as to who owned the name and who could do what with the name and whatnot. So because as we all know, later on it was Geoff Tate's Queensryche, then it was Operation Mindcrime. He did another solo record, so a lot of litigation at this point, and we weren't really sure how that was going to play out. So, but I will also give Geoff credit because this is not a completely crap record, and he did get a lot of people to come in and work on it. And you and I both know how hard it is to get even one or two people to come in on something. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Geoff has more at his disposal than we do, but I don't, like you, I didn't buy this record when it came out. I had no interest in it. Having listened to it, I'm glad that I have it. We should also point out, you didn't either. I didn't rate them. They redid some Queensryche songs on this record. I didn't rate them for the purpose of ranking this record, but it's kind of cool to hear those re-records as well. I think that those are interesting. So I'm glad I have it. It's not a complete train wreck, and it's consistent with the previous three records, in my view, that we've already discussed.
I agree. When I went into listening to this, over the years, I've kind of checked out a track here and there, but I never committed to really listening to it in its entirety until this exercise more recently. And I said, you know what? I'm just gonna listen to it for what it is. Maybe it's good. Maybe there's some really good stuff on this. And I will say that while I do think it is consistent with the other albums, I agree with you. It's not a train wreck in any way, shape, or form. I actually think there's some good stuff on it. Mm-hmm. That said, I rated the entire thing at a 2.5 or a 3. And again, to me, my 2.5 is more like your 3. I didn't give anything higher than a 3, though. And it could be, maybe that's because I haven't lived with some of it for as long. I do think the album sounds good.
Yeah. I gave the highest score a 3.5. Everything else for me was a 3. It's
okay.
So I think the production is interesting, but it's funny. The first song on the record is Cold, which I gave the highest to.
I was going to ask that.
I do think the record has a little bit of a cold, dry production to it, though. Not that it's bad. I think it sounds good, but I do think it's a bit of a cold production.
Well, that's where you should maybe listen to Billy Sherwood's remix of it.
And I probably will.
It's at some point you should. At some point I'll give it a closer listen. I gave Cold a 3. In the Hands of God, I gave a 3. Running Backwards, a 3. Life Without You, everything.
Running Backwards is the one with KK. I think he does the solo on Running Backwards.
Yeah, okay. I wasn't sure. The Weight of the World, I gave a 3 as well. I think those are they're fine. I can put this album on and listen to it and enjoy it. I think there's a dullness, I think, to like American Soldier, and I think that, like you said, there's a coldness, but maybe a little bit more bite to Frequency Unknown in terms of the production. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to kind of put some of these things into words. But I was I
Let me
guess
just say,
yeah.
for
Oh, yeah. I'm
me,
sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
for me, it wasn't. I was thinking it was going to be a complete train wreck. I'm like, I'm not going to like this. It's not a complete train wreck. Now, granted, it's not. It's not one of my favorite Queensryche records, but there's nothing on this record that I disliked. Nothing below a 3.
Hmm.
So I can
Yeah.
listen.
There's no what we do on this album.
I can listen to this record and appreciate it for what it is, and enjoy it.
Okay, now let's end the Frequency Unknown part of this with the question though. When you put this on and listen to it,
Hmm.
despite the fact that it says Queensryche on the cover, do you feel yourself listening to a Queensryche record or a Geoff Tate solo album?
More of a Geoff Tate solo album.
Yeah, and same here. And I think anybody would probably say that. But yeah, that's but again, we've explained why we're including it here because it'll be interesting to see how it ranks out. So,
What do
um,
you think before we get into like the summation? What do you think about the re-records that they did on this record?
I don't think they're not that impressive to me.
Okay,
I don't. Yeah.
it's interesting that they did it. It's kind of risky to do that, but and again, I didn't grade them. I don't think you did either, but it's interesting to hear them. No need to re-record them, but they do appear on this record.
Well, one reason to re-record them maybe because if they're ever licensed to be used somewhere, he could get
True,
the
true,
yeah.
true.
But yeah. So yeah. Did you want to go into the how these ranked out for you?
I do.
Okay, I do too, and I will say there are some surprises for me on this.
All
Uh,
right.
having said that, I do want to say between the thing that came in fourth place and the thing that came in the first place, there's only a 3% difference between those two. Or but yeah,
Um,
between the
for
top
me,
at only 3%.
for me, it's about 5%, and between two of these records, it's 67 100ths of 1%. So it gets a little bit tight.
Okay. Yeah, for me, the fourth place is only 0.3% less than the third place.
Yeah, it gets a little bit tight. Yeah.
It gets very tight, and then there's only about a 1%, basically a 1.2% difference between the number three and the number two spot, and then about a 1.5 difference between the number two and the number one spot. So, okay, so they're all pretty comparable in that regard, which basically means if you used our scoring system, or if I went back and did a half a point there and a half a point here and stuff, that these might be, they might rank out differently, but it's how the numbers, it's how it all bared out. So, um,
Hmm.
okay, so we're ready to go for number four. The number four spot, you ready?
Yep.
Okay, for me, number four was Operation Mindcrime Part Two.
Same here.
Ooh, I'm surprised. Okay. In the number three spot for me was American Soldier.
For me, it was Frequency Unknown.
Okay. Okay. For me, the number two spot was Dedicated to Chaos.
Same here.
Wow. Wow. And then that means for me, the number one of these was oddly enough Frequency Unknown.
It's American Soldier.
Wow. Okay. Um, so yeah, if I averaged these out, it would probably average around to like 53.5%.
Yeah, for me, it's probably going to be in the low 60s.
Okay. Yeah. So folks, if you are a Queensryche fan, especially a fan that has stuck with them through thick and thin, if you're familiar with this era and you want to comment below, please do. Like,
Yeah.
subscribe. This is, gosh, part three. We're going to be gearing up to do part four. And, we'll do that sooner than later. And then after part four, then we'll do a part five where we aggregate the entire catalog as kind of a summation episode. So,
Hmm.
uh, anything else on Queensryche before we wrap this up?
No, that'll do.
Okay, so we are part of a project. The other guys don't necessarily appear on camera with us too often. Josh does occasionally. Josh plays bass. Josh is also a writer, and we came up with this name, Underlords of the Overworld, as a silly. It was actually a name for a fictional band at one point, and the basic idea behind it was that we are basically not overlords of anything, certainly not of the underworld, but we thought of ourselves as underlords, like underachievers or something. And the overworld is just merely, the world around us. So we're pretty underwhelming in that regard. And Josh, because he's a writer, he's a good writer, and he wrote an initial story, like an alternate universe history, and it's a little corny looking, but it's really fun. And then there was a part 2 and then a part 3 and then stuff. And then he started writing kind of like a spin-off in the same universe of kind of this kind of goofball, occult oriented group that's subcontracted by the government to write cover and deception stories for anomalous things, and it's called the OAO, which is Ordo Abstrusus Oculus. And we took an old song that Brent and Josh wrote a long, long time ago called "I Don't Believe in Bigfoot," which was kind of meant to be a silly song. Mm-hmm. And we re-recorded it. We actually, in some ways, our drummer Andy, who also is a keyboard player and a singer, he took the initial guitar idea and he reworked it into a piano thing, and then we rearranged the song and re-recorded the song. And listening back to it, it was like I could hear Blaze Bayley singing this. So I emailed Blaze Bayley's manager and I said, well, how do we get Blaze Bayley to sing on this? And he said basically, well, just schedule it and, pay the fee. And he was super cool about it, both his manager and Blaze himself. And so Blaze did it, and he actually offered some melodic contributions and stuff. And, somebody messaged us on our Facebook page a while ago and said, you ought to put audio clips and stuff of your stuff in there. But to be honest, none of us are that good with video editing and things like that, and stuff. And but I think I figured out by switching a little thing on the Zoom thing here, where audio sound can come through it. There's the default on Zoom is like it basically like shuts down background noise, but you can change the settings. So hopefully this will come through, folks. This is just a little taste. It's kind of a middle section of this song called OAO, Ordo Abstrusus Oculus. It is on this CD, which features a demon in the story, Cankerburn is his name. There's a lot of interwoven stuff about all this into our universe.
And also, this version of the song is only available on the CD.
No. It's available online. You can stream it. It's just not. If you go to Spotify, you just go to the single Ordo Abstrusus Oculus, or if you go to Bandcamp, there's a single. It's just Ordo Abstrusus Oculus. If you pull up Lottery of Your Life, the album, it's just the main album. We just took the singles and stuff and put them as bonus tracks on there. So you can find this. You can find this. So anyway, this is going into a solo section, which I quite like. And yeah, Brent, you're the one who picked this clip. So let's let this roll. It's going to be about maybe 50 seconds or so. So if you're still with us, hang out. Tell us what you think. Okay, so that was, just from a creative standpoint, I thought it was so fun. Brent, maybe we can do a video where we talk about our own stuff later, but just a comment about that. You and Josh wrote the original song, which was, 1995, and Blaze was in Iron Maiden at the time. And so, we bring that back and we rewrite it and rearrange it, put some new lyrics to it and stuff, completely rearrange the song, and to then hear Blaze Bayley singing it with the same melodies that existed in 1995, it was just like, wow. That was the thing. And the whole thing, the reason I wanted to point this out is we're not trying to make a buck doing this. I mean, we're both professionals in our own lives. We have careers. It's not about trying to, it's not even really about getting attention. It's just simply about creating things and having that moment of creation and kind of going, wow, that we actually created that. That's cool. Being proud of something that you created. And then to put it out there and share it with people. And if somebody likes it, cool. That's great. That's about all you can ask for. So, yeah, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts before we close out? Because maybe someone's out there that's listening to this and says, that's cool. Maybe they'll check out OAO Volume 1 that inspired that song. It's called The Consciousness Eater. Authors H. Prescott Lemon. I'll put a link below. He's our bass player. And,
yeah, I would encourage people to check out if you like dark comedy and science fiction and stuff like that, horror. You probably like the books. He's a really good writer. I'm not just saying that because I've known him for decades. He is. The music we all quite like. As a matter of fact, we're just wrapping up a new record right now, and hopefully it'll be out sooner than later. It's my favorite thing that we've ever done. I'm really proud of it and excited about it. So yeah, if you want to check out what we do, there are ways you can do that. Bandcamp, and you can get CDs through Bandcamp, and yeah, it's all good stuff. I would encourage people to check it out.
If you want to check out what we do,
there you go. You can find us at our YouTube channel.
Yes.
So and we do a lot of stuff on our YouTube channel.
We do. All right. So like, subscribe, check out stuff, support independent artists, and thanks for joining. And if you're a Queensryche fan, I'd love to hear what people have to say about this period specifically, because this period, even though it might get slagged a little bit, and maybe rightly so by some folks, it is an interesting period, I think. And sometimes a band's interesting period is the period where they're kind of trying to find their feet again. And so yeah.
Why don't you just let's before we wrap up, what are we going to do next with Queensryche? We're going to do the Todd Latore albums, are we not?
Yep. Which would be the self-titled album, which came out only a few months after this. Followed by Condition Human, and followed by The Verdict, and then their latest album, Digital Noise Alliance. So, yeah, cool. So thanks for joining, and I guess sayonara. We'll see you next time.